Like, don't chase the money. Like, you can't eat money, and money doesn't protect you. If something happens, you're on your own.
It doesn't provide stability.
I'm never going to stay in a job that doesn't serve me, and I never have. Meaning, if I don't like the job anymore, I'm bored, or I don't like the people, I'm out. And I think, really, someday never comes. And this even goes back to early on when you bump into a friend and, oh, we should get together someday. If you don't make a date, someday is not in the calendar. Someday never comes. Sometimes a little naivety is good because it allows you opportunities that fear doesn't paralyze you and prevent you from saying yes.
Listen, make the universe your best friend. That's what it is.
That's it, yeah. And ask for what you want. The planet will survive, with or without us.
There are certain animals, without them, it's finished. It's the end.
Worms are the soil makers.
Yeah, like, bees, worms, some of the animals we have, like, dude, you don't have them. It's finished. Like, there's no point fighting. There's no point challenging Exxon or anybody. Like, it's finished.
Laughter is the best medicine. It's in us all, waiting to burst out. We just need to employ it. What we need to do is stop, take a deep breath in, start laughing, ha ha ha, apologize to all the people we just yelled at, and then we find our keys, phone, glasses, whatever you've misplaced. Because our brain is literally deprived of oxygen. It can't help you.
Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. My guest today is Cathy Nesbitt, fellow Canadian. Not too far from me either when I was living in Canada. She's a health and wellness advocate and founded Cathy's Crawly Composters in 2002, which we'll get to in a minute, an interesting part of this conversation. And then this serial eco-preneur went on to establish Cathy's Sprouters and Cathy's Laughter Club. Cathy's a multi-award winning visionary who inspires individuals to live a more joyful, sustainable life. And I can attest to the joyful because I joined her Laughter Club session last week, and basically you laugh for, the hour, or the half hour. So with a lot of education and movement and interesting parts. We'll get that as well. Cathy's a certified laughter yoga teacher, appointed laughter ambassador in 2017 by Dr. Madan Kataria, the pioneer of laughter yoga. Tapping, brain gym, and other healing modalities are incorporated. That's what I was trying to say, but in much worse language. She helps people get out of stress and into joy. When we feel good, we do good. That's what Cathy says. She's actually a 2-time TEDx speaker, and she now trains laughter yoga, which is what I attended the other day. She's a worm advocate, which is something we're going to talk about, an eco-preneur, as I said, and in 2022, Women of Inspiration Advocate and Catalyst for Change Award winner. Congratulations. Yay.
Thank you.
An enthusiast cyclist and gardener. I can't do both. I'm sorry. I can't garden because I don't know anything about gardening. That's why I can't garden. And the cycling, I prefer running for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, Cathy has been leading transformative laughter yoga sessions since 2015 in diverse settings, such as actually corporations, which I was not expecting, assisted living facilities, which is great, and schools, much needed. Her sessions harness her boundless energy, passion, and her generosity. And perhaps the most nostalgic thing you should take from this introduction, I found out Cathy worked for Saab, a car company that many of you won't even know existed, which was so adorable. And they made such beautiful, I remember the 9.5 and the 9.3, and the 9.3 came in sports special models, and everybody wanted a Saab at one point. And then out of nowhere, they stopped. So she used to work there as well. So hello, Cathy, and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues.
Thank you, Ali. Wow, Saab, you really did your research.
I know. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that car company, I remember that. So much to talk about with you, Cathy. So let's start with childhood. I ask my guests about childhood generally when they have grown into this fascinating person, because I want to know what happens during someone's childhood that allows them to kind of dream and accomplish. Because you know the majority of the world is on this trajectory of just survival, in a way, and then and for some, and for the majority actually, I don't blame them, because the world is designed such today that they don't get the opportunities. There's so many places that I've traveled through that you can be a visionary, you can have all the ideas, you can have everything, but there's no way you're going to achieve, because it's just such a harsh environment. So it's not supportive to achievement. Whereas then you look at places like Canada, or the Scandinavian region, or other developed parts of the world in this sense, and you think the world's really at your feet in some ways. And if you don't achieve, and there are backstories to it, there are traumas or other things involved, I could kind of say, okay, let's help you through that. But for a lot of people, there isn't that drive to have a vision and to achieve. And then I meet people like you who are overachievers. So I always want to know, what is it in childhood? What is the recipe? So what was your childhood like? The whole of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to start. I love that. So I think as a child I was kind of invisible, and I would wake up singing and so like chipping like a little bird, chip choop 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 choop, and then was quickly shut down. Like, oh my gosh, too noisy. What's happening? Nobody's that happy in the morning. And I became silent. And I went into myself and I became depressed, and I was very, just trying to manage every day. Yeah, it's interesting looking back. I think that's as I was thinking about your intro and all the things that you were saying, it's like, oh, that's fascinating. That when I was growing up, there was so many slogans that I didn't understand about, working hard, and this is regarding work life, but working hard and being loyal, then you'll get rewarded in 30 years with a gold watch. And like, why do you need a watch when you retire? I know, because you're busier than ever, I guess. And you need to have a job to get a job. You have to have experience, and nobody will hire you if you don't have experience. Like, how do you, I didn't understand, how do you get experience if you don't have experience? Will somebody give you a chance? I don't know. Yeah, so it's fascinating. I think what happened, I feel like my childhood was happy, although really looking back, it probably wasn't, because my dad was alcoholic. My parents divorced when I was 7, which in the 60s was, people stayed together at that time. I felt like an alien because I only had one parent, and I know there was others. It just felt like I was alone. Yeah, so it's funny. And then my stepfather, who I loved very much, lived with us for 14 years, and he passed when I was 21, and that shaped who I became. They say you marry somebody like your dad, but I married someone like my stepdad.
Well, he was your dad in a sense,
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, during the formative years. True enough.
Yeah. And two things you said there really resonate with me. I advocate for family being the bonds that you form versus this pseudoscientific value of the blood that runs through you, or the egg and the sperm that made you. Because you could be born to two biological parents and have zero connection or contact with them, and grow up with two other parents who love and nurture and raise you in a way that you owe a lot of your achievements and your capabilities to their upbringing and nurturing and love and compassion for you. And then I think to myself, where is the value in family here? Do I still say my biological parents are such and such, or do I just say my parents are such and such, and this person or that? And when you say that, it flips that for me, in the sense that is your father. That was the person who kind of, when you say it that way, when you say a lot of his presence in your life shaped you, automatically, that's the way I see the father figure. So
Yeah.
in language, we tend to bring all of these kind of added layers that don't help sometimes, stepfather or father figure or things like that, as opposed to taking that barrier down and saying father or dad, in the sense that there is that tighter connection. So I like that part. And you have this optimistic narrating of your life, in the sense that you state some facts. I was invisible, or my dad was alcoholic when I was a baby, and I was ashamed of being, or alienated by being a single parent household for a while, or anything like that, or even having a stepdad later on, because those things were also very different to today in the 70s or 60s, and during that era. But then you counter that with such optimism and happiness, and look, but I'm perfectly fine now, and I'm happy, and everything. I look back at everything with a smile. That I like when people do that, because a lot of people take that and they create more negativity through that blame, that this is the hand I was dealt, which is why I lost. Whereas I look at this from a poker perspective. When you play poker, sometimes you're dealt the worst hand. Like statistically, it's impossible to get dealt that hand, almost, right? And you get that. And I've seen people win with that hand. It's just how you play it sometimes, right? And playing it well essentially gets you where you are. And really, that's what I'm learning from your childhood. Play your hand well. Have the right emotions when you look at your life, and you can use that to kind of lift yourself higher. Now, how did you transition this? So this was your childhood. Now we come into early adulthood, and please, I also fully agree with you about the work experience situation, because the way I got into actually having my own fund in Canada was because I never got a job. So I graduated. We went to the same school. We went to York. So I did my economics degree, my philosophy degree. Then I did my master's in philosophy, master's political science, MBA, and then postgrad in conflict resolution. And I did all of that at York. And at first I did it because I didn't want to go back home. I was having too much fun in Canada. So I was like, Dad, I'm doing another degree, And he's like, yeah, another one. And for my dad, it was like, he was very proud that his son was, achieving this level of education, because during that era, back in the Middle East, I mean, people didn't go to school to that level, right? And so most of the people who lived 100 years ago, in the Middle East, didn't, in certain parts of the Middle East at least, didn't see that kind of schooling. So he was very proud. And so after I finished all of this, I wanted to stay in Canada, because I really love Toronto and the multiculturalism and everything that came with Toronto then. And the emphasis being on then. And then I went out to get a job, and I thought, I'm definitely getting any job I want, because look at my qualification, look at my academics. Who's going to say no? And every place said the same thing. They said, you're overqualified. We can't hire you. You have no experience, and you have too much education. How do you have too much education? Like, what's wrong with too much education, right? Give me a chance. No. And I had a little bit of money saved. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try my hand at Forex trading and see how I do, because growing up, traveling around the world, with my family, and going to boarding school and living overseas and all of that, I learned to exchange money a lot, especially in Europe. There was no euro then. Every country had its own floating currency. So even as a child, you learn when to exchange, Swiss francs to French francs, because like you kind of, you'd get an extra T-shirt if you exchange at the right time, because, the change of money. So you learn those things. So I used that. And then, here we are. The fund started from there. So thanks for all the people who never hired me, because otherwise this may never have happened. But you made that transition as well, but you made it on your own, which is a lot more to learn from than my fashion, because people normally tell me, how did you, take that route into entrepreneurialism and all that? I said, no, I didn't take it wasn't optional. It was mandatory that I become an entrepreneur. Whereas with Cathy, it's a will, because you were at Belova for many years, and then Saab, right? And then I love that. And then you transitioned into worms. So I need to know how, you go from watches uh, all the way there.
Yeah, so I grew up in the 60s, and I mean, the message that I received, it wasn't like a written memo or anything, but it was, that women could do 5 things. We could be secretary, teacher, nurse, waitress, or secretary, if I didn't say that one. And
Or a
so,
housewife.
well, housewife was
Yeah,
with all of those. I mean, you still need to
it
look
actually
after.
still is.
Yes.
We need to say that. We really need to say that, because people, like in this age of feminism, they pretend like the woman isn't taking care of the house still. And I
Right.
really don't see that many equal kind of load households,
No.
even in the most egalitarian systems and stuff. It's really not the same feeling. So yeah, sorry to cut you off, but I get heated about certain things, and this is one of
Yeah,
them.
no,
There
that's
is no
true.
equality.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So I thought of that little limited list. Okay. And in a way it was a gift, because when there's too many options, I get paralyzed.
Mm.
Right? Like it's like, I don't know when people go, oh, you can do anything, you can be anything. It's like, well, how do I choose? Like, how do you choose if it's limitless? So
Mm.
5 things. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll be a secretary. And so I took all those courses, typing, keyboarding, I think it's called today. And I'm a great typist. Like, thank goodness, what a gift. And the shorthand, not that you need that today,
Mm.
but all those skills, right? All those things. And I worked 20 years in the office. 20 years. Can you imagine? It's like it took me a long time to get the message that I'm an entrepreneur. I would change jobs almost annually. Almost every year I would change a job. And I didn't wait till I had a job. I would just quit my job. Like, this job isn't serving me. I'm going to go and
Mm.
get another job. And I was so confident because I was a good secretary and I knew I would get another job. And so I did. The last 10 years of my work life, I worked as an employee. I worked as a Kelly girl. So I was a temporary secretary. You have to be pretty independent to work 10 years temporary. And
Mm.
here's I don't know how it is today, but at that time, if you worked temporary, people felt like you weren't smart enough to hold a full-time job.
Mm.
So I was getting my psych degree at night. I went to at night. I didn't care about the paper. I just liked learning. And I liked the people that you met at night school. Different than, your parents paying for your school and you have to go because they're paying. This I'm paying myself, and so were the others. Okay, so I was when I was working, I would have like reception jobs or kind of little jobs, and because I was the temp, I wasn't smart enough in their mind, so they would teach me how to do the job but not give me any work. So while I would answer the phone and do the job, and then I'd be writing my essays and doing my reading. I used to joke and say I was getting paid to get my degree. Right? It was beautiful. It really
Yeah.
served. And then 2000, I graduated. It took me 15 years to get my degree, my BA. um, and it's so great because it's like I graduated in 2000. Now I
Wow, we,
always
we
remember.
we were at school at the same time.
Were we? Oh, how fun.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I was doing my 99 to 2000. I finished my philosophy undergrad before going into the grad program the next year. And I was probably where you were, because it was in Very Hall area of the school, the main campus. That's where psychology and philosophy and all those things happen. So we probably crossed paths.
We probably did. Maybe we had
Probably
coffee. Who
did.
knows?
Yeah.
Nice to see you again, Ali.
I know.
So 2000, I graduated with my psych degree, and I got a job at a group home working with challenged adults. And I thought I had come home. I really thought I was meant to be a secretary. That was my lot in life. And,
Hmm.
I came from an employee background. My family are all employees. You work your whole life, and then you at 65 your life begins because you're not tied to somebody else.
Mm.
And then that's when you travel and do all the things. Yeah, so I graduated with my psych degree and I got a job at a group home, and it was so beautiful. At this home, you had to be doubly blessed with a mental illness too. They had 10 homes and a farm, and it was so beautiful. It was just, when you work with challenged people, if you respect them, they respect you back. The end. Like that's it. And I was like, wow. There were so many lessons that I learned from working with that demographic. My challenge was management. And I think what happens is, you start on the front lines, you're doing the battling and you're doing the thing, and then you work your way up the ranks, and then you're in your ivory tower and looking down, and you forgot how it was. And
Mm.
yeah, so I couldn't work with management, and I left the group home and went to work at a school, and I was a freelance behavior management specialist. It sounds so impressive, doesn't it? It doesn't fit on a business card. And there was one child, I had one, so there was two freelance behavior management specialists, a teacher in a soundproof padded room for one student. And I used to think that everybody needed to be included in the school system, or everybody needs to be included. And after that experience, I knew that it wasn't possible. There's just not enough. There's not enough resources, and it doesn't even make sense. And then I got in. So freelance means I didn't have a safety net. So when I got injured, I didn't, it was like, well, go to work or don't get paid.
Mm.
Right? You're done. So I was like, oh, and that's what I talk to young people today. When they say, well, this job over here pays so much money. It's like, well, do you have a safety net? Like, don't chase the money. Like, you can't eat money, and money doesn't protect you. If something happens, you're on your own.
It doesn't provide stability.
It does not. It does
Yeah.
not. Right? So
It's a very false sense of security, I should say, because even if you're making good money, I tell people, I actually say the same thing you say. I tell them, imagine this scenario. You want this job because it pays $100,000 a year versus the other one that pays $70,000 a year but gives you the safety net, right? They say yes. And I say, you calculate that currently, even if you didn't have the safety net and you did require to pay medical bills or something, that it would not cost that $30,000. And okay, fair. I'll even give you that. Now throw in the inflation that you've been experiencing for the last 2 years and tell me that 70,000 isn't what you would have picked. And then they start thinking and they're like, And then, the whole comprehension of security and stability changes for them.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So back to my father, who was my stepfather, but he passed. It was really interesting. I traveled a lot in the 80s, and in 1980s, when was it? I went to live in France in 82. So 82, I lived in France, and when I was leaving, they were driving me to the airport, and Mike was his name. He said, oh, kind of, why are you going? It's not going to be the same when you get back. And I said, oh, Will, we've got this great father-daughter relationship. We love each other, and it's fine. It'll be great. When I came back, he had brain cancer. It was not the same. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like on a level he knew. I don't know. It's hard to know. And he passed like 6 months later. So when I came back, of course, he was different. His passing, I seem to take these, I don't know why this happened to me, but when something happens, I always look at the good side, like, okay, what can I learn from this? What lesson can I take? And what I took from his passing was, we spend a lot of time at work. I'm going to love every job I have. I'm never going to stay in a job that doesn't serve me. And I never have. I never have. Meaning, if I don't like the job anymore, I'm bored, or I don't like the people, something, I'm out. And I think, what a gift. What a gift, because how many people stay in a job that doesn't serve them anymore? They hate it. But it pays the bills and it's secure
Right.
and
Right.
whatever. It's all
Right.
like, what do I do now? I'm 5 years from retirement. How do I leave now, or whatever it is? Yeah. So what happened? Oh yeah.
So
So
you chose to live essentially versus work, because that's how
yes,
I differentiate it. Because if I
yes,
enjoy writing, for example, and that's my career choice, I'm doing what I love,
yes.
right? Versus I enjoy writing, but I work at two restaurants to pay the rent, and then at night when I have the 2 hours of free time in bed before passing out, I will write something. That is, you're enslaving yourself and kind of hobbying your life. You're bringing all of your life
Mm,
to this condensed space of a hobby, whereas the rest of your existence is just slavery, as opposed to
yes.
freeing
Well
yourself from that
said.
shackle and reducing, making the hobby your life, and then saying, aside from the hobby, I have maybe half an hour of the day that I have to give to things that I have to do, like take a shower, eat, brush my teeth,
Mm,
things like that, right? Those may not be the highest things on my level of wants, but I'm going to give those to that because I understand the necessity of staying healthy, for example. But I want to do what I love.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah. So what happened? And okay, so that we're kind of jumping around a bit, but I did travel a lot and it was so beautiful. And it's funny, in 89, 90, my husband and I traveled for 13 months in Africa and Asia.
Ooh.
And we just were hoofing it. Like we just had our backpack, and that was something I wanted to do. It was one of those dream things on my list, even though I didn't really have a list. I was 27. And wow, it's so fascinating what people say. The interest rates were at double digits. I was working in a law firm and um, doing powers of attorney. I mean, I told the lawyer, I can't answer these calls anymore. And because the people would say, oh, my son has cancer, da da da, and I can't, and I'd say, I can't take these calls, and he said they're lying, and I'm like, I can't hear those calls anymore. You have to answer the phone yourself. And that's when we chose to go. All our friends were buying houses because there was a big scramble. Like,
Mm,
oh, and so our friends were saying, if you go away now for a year, you're never going to buy a house. Sound familiar? Sounds like today, right?
mm,
And the accountant in the firm that I work for said, wow, these are your prime earning years. You're never going to earn that money again.
mm,
Right back to money again. I said, wow. I'm I said I didn't understand that what he was talking about. I was like, I'm never going to have this experience of traveling for 13 months, being independent, just my husband and I depending
mhm.
on each other and traveling around the world. Like, we're never going to have an education like that. Anyway, I didn't understand. Again, back to the cliche things of you better. And people said, when I retire, I'm going to travel. Yeah, at 65, you're not going to hoof it like I did carrying your 40
No,
pound
no. And
pack.
and you don't even know if you're going to make it, and you don't even know the ailments you're going to have at 65. You could be dealing with 20 different types of diseases and sicknesses and illnesses and physical shortcomings that don't allow you to do some of those things. Like you cannot, hike across some of the beautiful sceneries in Asia when you're 70 years old. I don't care how fit you are. You're not going to be able to do it like a 20-year-old. So get out
Yeah,
there. Like don't you
don't
know
wait.
today I call it economic terrorism.
Mhm.
And economic terrorism for me is exactly what you said. People around you saying, you're never going to get this opportunity, you got to buy now, because it's terrorizing, because you're like, oh my god, what if I don't buy, what happens, and you get scared and you're like, oh my god, what if I don't continue working in this 2 years that the wages are so high, it's going to drop, and then I'll have no savings, and the fear takes over. And what is terrorism is essentially instilling fear in you 24/7.
That's
And
it.
economic terrorism is what people are living by. So you broke free from all of that, and you're like, never mind how much I earn, never mind the house I can buy. And you're lucky enough to have a husband who also was like, yeah, let's get our backpacks together and go. Because sometimes the divorces happen because of that. The divorces happen because the husband or the wife is like, no, we need to pay off the mortgage, we need to work, we need to slave. And so people don't see eye to eye, but you had that privilege of
So not only all of
alignment.
those things that we mentioned, but also what I didn't think about, because it kind of wasn't a thing back at that time, was climate change. Some of the places that I went to you
Don't
can't either
exist.
go to them, the water's not drinkable there anymore, whatever.
I know.
Right. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think that of those things. I'm an and I think, really someday never comes. And this goes back to early on when you bump into a friend and, oh, we should get together someday. If you don't make a date, someday is not in the calendar. There's no, someday never comes. Like, if you want to get together, let's make a date. If you don't say you want to get together.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real.
Yeah, I like that sentence. I'm going to use that. Someday is not in the calendar. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's
My
a
pleasure.
good one.
Right? Someday never comes.
Right.
It's totally true. And again, I don't know. I think this came, and because you took me back to childhood, I'm thinking this came about because I needed to be independent. I really wanted to be seen and heard. And I really thank my parents now for keeping me silent. Because now I'm a speaker and now I can use my voice and I think, wow, if I used all my words as a child, what would I say now?
That's a good way of looking at it. See, I told you, I was right about you. You're looking at the positive all the time. And I kind of caught that on from the first sentence you said. I said, here's a positive thinker. Now, have you ever gone back, or have you ever looked at some of the places that you had traveled through and say, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening because of climate change in that specific place?
Well, they moved the capital of Indonesia. They moved it to another island. And when we were in Java in 1990, the water was black. I mean, it was like people were fishing in tar. So I can only imagine how it is, however many years that is later, 30 years later, almost 40 years. Wow. They moved the capital to another island. There's places. And, at that time in 1990, there was an uprising in Nepal and we wanted to go to Nepal so bad. They had a 24-hour curfew and there we were in Darjeeling on the border of India and Nepal, just waiting till they opened the border because we were probably not very smart because we wanted it so bad. We were like, no, it's fine. They're not after us. The fight isn't about
we're tourists.
us.
Yeah,
We're tourists. They're not going to do anything to us. Like how naive. Pretty naive. And because the world was the country was under conflict, that discouraged people from going. And so there we were hiking. It's called the Coca-Cola route up the Annapurna Mountain. And there was nobody. I think what people told us, what the innkeeper said was you needed to leave first thing in the morning and hoof it to the next place, or you needed to go 2 places to get a place. That wasn't our experience. We had the whole place to ourselves most nights because there was nobody else. And it was high season. So, I think sometimes a little naivety is good because it allows you opportunities that fear doesn't paralyze you and prevent you from saying yes.
I was in a terror zone, in the conflict in Iraq and Syria when ISIS was taken over about a decade ago. And you say naivety. I was full stupid because I was in the middle of the conflict zone and I was crossing a main street and shooting broke out. And I collapsed to the ground as soon as I could because I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting shot here. And so I dragged myself over and I was like, don't shoot. And I'm yelling at people and the guy's looking at me and he's like, who are you? And I said, I'm a tourist. You can't shoot me. I'm a tourist. Right. And I'm thinking this is helpful now. Right. And he's like, what do you mean I'm a tourist? Like there isn't even press here. What do you mean I'm a tourist? And I said, yeah, no, actually I'm a tourist. And I pull out my Canadian passport. I'm showing him. Right. And he's like, what are you doing here? And I said, I am a tourist. And I was just going through this area because it's historic, 2,000 years ago. And I'm trying to tell him the story. And meanwhile, there's a whole shootout going on, right? And so he drags me, by my shoulder and pulls me into their bunker thing. And then a little while later, it calmed down and I had to go back, right, to the other side. where the government still, held control, the Iraqi government, and that was where the hotels and everything else were. And so they actually communicated between each other. Like, there's a crazy person here who just happened to cross over, and they're actually a tourist, and we have nothing to do with this person. Like, we just want to send this person back. Don't shoot this person. And
Wow.
so, yeah, the military on the other side's kind of like, who is this, right? And everybody was really concerned. So anyways, I get to the other side, and they validate that I'm just crazy, and they send me back. And then basically they asked me not to
Wow.
stay in that area anymore because they were worried about yeah. And so I left. But you're right. Sometimes you think, but I'm a tourist. I have nothing to do with this uprising,
Yeah,
right?
why would they?
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then you get caught in the middle of. I think there was a film too that I watched many years ago. I think it was in Rwanda, or it was in Cambodia, I think, where a tourist family were there, and then the revolution broke out, and then they got caught in the midst of it and everything. So it does happen. Um, I was also in Istanbul during the attempted coup and the revolution, and when they were trying to overthrow Erdogan again almost a decade ago. And I was in Egypt, in Cairo, during the Morsi revolution, the first one where he came to
Wow.
power. I know. I was literally in four revolutions around the world, and then I got scared because I thought somebody must add these up and think I have something to do, because like, how are you in four consecutive
Here's that
uprisings?
guy again who
Yeah,
keeps saying
yeah.
he's a
This I
tourist.
know. Somebody's got to make some conspiracy theory about this, and here, the CIA is going to pick me up any day now. So I got so scared traveling for a while after that, because I traveled a lot, right? And I remember one time I was at the airport, and this was in the UK, and the agent, she's looking at, she's like, "Are you a journalist?" And I said, "No." Where does it say that? She's like, "It doesn't say that, but you've been to every death zone." You have a stamp, and so the only people who go to these places during those things are journalists. So what do you do? And I was like, "Oh, I manage a fund." And then she's like, "You manage a fund? Like, is this like your excitement? Like the money markets don't excite you?" And I was like, I never really thought about it that way. And then when I left, I was like, yeah, it's weird that I've been in these
Mhm.
places at these, but no education like travel. Seriously. I tell
Right?
people that all the time. There's no education. All these degrees I have, I think if I could get certificates based on travel, they would really mean more for people trying to get a job and stuff, or people hiring other people. Hire the ones with a full passport of stamps, because
Mm.
they have certain experiences in education and knowledge that you just can't teach in economics 101. You just can't do that. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of education. So I love traveling. And yeah, as you were saying too, they changed Indonesia from the capital from an island to an island. So many places that I've been to that I look at now, and I'm like, wow, there used to be a pier here, and there used to be this and
Mhm.
that, and now like the sea is here, and or now the island is uninhabitable because people moved away from it. There were people here, now there are no people here. So yeah, it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. Speaking of climate change, composting. I mean,
Yes.
this is kind of the closest topic. Climate change. We can transition into worm composting. So when I first heard about you, the first thing was, you guys went to the same school, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I thought, what did you do? Are you a lawyer? Are you a psychologist, or an economist, or political
Or a worm
science
farmer.
student? Yeah, those are the four that I thought, because like York, right? I'm thinking those.
Yeah.
I mean, if you went to U of T, I would have thought medicine, engineering, the fields they're famous in. And those in York, I was like, which one of those is she? Or is she artistic? Is she a dancer or something in arts, right? And then I look at the profile, and there's like, you need to bring worms into your home. I was like, wait, what? And so I was like, okay, let's speak with Cathy, because I want to know why I need worms in my home. So please tell me.
So I'm from Toronto. In 1993, I bought a house in Bradford, just north of Toronto. And
So you
I'll
did
tell,
end up buying a house.
I did end up buying a house. I
See?
did.
And
Yes.
traveled. while
And
your
I
friends
did
didn't
too.
travel.
That's correct. Yes. And now they're still in their homes with their mortgage.
See?
No, I don't know. Um, in 1993, bought my house, and a teacher friend asked me to look after her. So I bought the house, and I couldn't wait to start gardening and composting. And a teacher friend asked me to look after her worm bin for the summer. So this is indoor composting with worms, vermicomposting. And I was like, oh, I don't want worms in my house. No. Ugh. But I knew the value of, I didn't want worms in the house, but I knew the value of the black gold that the worms produce, the worm poop. So I said, okay, I'm going to take on the challenge. And that's what I really encourage people, is to say yes to opportunities instead of just going, oh, like people going, oh, you won't like that.
I
Oh,
won't
well,
like
can you
that.
just give me a list? Can you just give me a list of what I won't like, and so I can save my time? Like, someone's going to like it anyway. So I took on the challenge. For the summer, I had worms in my house, and I would open, so I'll talk about how it all works, but it's in a container. I would open up the lid, throw the food in, close the lid. I didn't want to see the worms. I didn't want to befriend them. I just needed to keep the worms alive for the summer for my friend and get the black gold in the end of the summer. I was a fruit fly farmer, Ali. And there's no point in being a fruit fly farmer because they die in a day or two. There's no market. Nobody's buying fruit flies, and they're hard to catch. So at the end of that summer in 93, I put on big gloves. I didn't want to touch the worms. Gross.
Gross.
It took me an hour to separate the worms, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. Okay, never say never, right? Fast forward to 2000, I get my psych degree, the job at the group home. Like, my life is like, if you can't connect the dots going forward. There's no dots. You can only look back and go, oh, that, and then that, and that. Oh, look at the picture that I created. So I get the job at the group home, 2000. They have 10 homes and a farm, and they don't compost. And I'm like, why don't you compost? Because if you compost, I mean, you create this beautiful soil. And anyway, they said, we don't need the fertilizer because we have cows. And I was like, it's not about the fertilizer. It's about having, like, they had a vocational program they had a farm. People would come, they had a greenhouse, a carpentry shop, all the places that people would go and do these jobs. Sand down the bench, paint the bench, sand it down again, paint it again, like make work projects. So why not compost? And so when I talked about composting, the one of the management said, well, why don't we do vermicomposting? Oh, no. Oh my gosh. Have you ever done something and you're like, hey, you're so excited about doing it, and then it doesn't work out like you think it's going to? And then somebody says, hey, Ali, why don't we, whatever it was. And you're like, oh, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. That's what happened. I was like, oh, the worms again. No. But I realized it was an institution. They're not getting worms anytime soon. So I came home, the internet was here, and I did some research, and I discovered the magic. So sometimes we need to be introduced to things a couple of times before we get it. So 93 was my first introduction to the worms. 2000, my second introduction. And then when I looked up the worms, so there's thousands of types of worms. Only 4 have been identified as optimum for vermicomposting. We're looking for surface dwellers. So I'll talk about the red wiggler worms. When I started to research the red wiggler worm, I discovered the magic of these worms. They eat half their weight per day in food scraps. They're the original alchemists. They turn garbage into black gold. Wow, what a skill. Without hands or feet. Cool. And yeah, they have 5 hearts each. What a beautiful thing. And what else? And I learned that the average Canadian, and I'll say / American family, produces a ton of organic waste in a year. A pound of worms and their descendants will transform a ton of organic waste in a year. So I was like, oh, everyone needs a pound of worms, and I'm just the one to put a pound of worms in every house. Anyway, so I was like, wow, I had this shift from like fear, which is the unknown, to, oh, wow, these creatures are so beautiful. So that's all going on in my head, and all this is fine. Then I left the group home because I couldn't work with management, got the job at the school. Then I got injured. And actually, I got kicked in my ring on my wedding finger, and I had my wedding ring on. And if only I didn't, my finger probably wouldn't have swelled like it did. So I kind of was cursing my husband that day, like, why did he buy such a good gold ring? Ha ha ha! It's okay. We're still married. It's fine.
We'll try to make him not hear this part. Okay.
He's heard it before. It's okay. I came home from that day from work, and I remember my stepfather passing and me attaching, not staying in a job. Okay, so now I'm stressed. I have one client, and I'm not going to be effective because I'm afraid of my one client. Okay, so I came home from work. There was, or from whatever. I came home. There was an ad in the paper, and it said, "Are you a woman? Do you have a business idea?" It was a business course to write a business plan, a 6-month course. So I turned to my husband. I said, "I'm quitting my job. I'm taking this course. I'm starting a worm business. Won't this be fun?"
A worm business. Okay. That's a lot of daring in you, because it's not like you're like, I have an opportunity to get a Tim Hortons franchise where people are like, okay, that seems like something,
Reasonable.
feasible and reasonable, and that we can see money coming from that or something. But you said, I'm going to go into the worm business. Okay.
Right.
Wild.
I believe I was divine. I think we're all divinely guided only when we pay attention, 100%,
right? Yes.
We got to pay attention to the signs. So the first sign for me was that I love gardening and composting.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 93, the first year I bought my house, looked after a worm bin. It's indoor composting. Okay, then
the introduction, the subtle introduction of the universe, right?
The little thing. So I was already introduced to the worms. Now I'm ready.
And then you go to this job that it comes back again. The talk of it starts. It gets you into the education of it. I mean, that's why you went and researched about it, because you're like, well, let me see what it's about. And then the unknown and the fear died. And now the universe is giving you an education. And then the universe is saying, you're going to read this paper right now because I want you to see that ad. And so you take the course. Yeah, it is exactly like that. That's how it is. But, if we want to be stubborn and dogmatic about things and say, no, that's not how it is, then, you're going to lose out on life. I'm sorry. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, then you miss opportunities.
Yeah, you're going to lose out on life.
Miss opportunities. Yeah. I think so.
Listen, make the universe your best friend. That's what it is.
That's it. Yeah. And ask for what you want. Yeah. So I took that course, started my worm business 2002. Okay. Everything's so fast. I find it fascinating now looking back. 2002, the landfill for the Greater Toronto Area closed. Canada's
I remember that.
Right? Canada's second largest country in the world. Pretty big. And we
got all these trucks to move our garbage to the US.
So good, right? So we're a large country, but we couldn't find a place to site a new landfill. Mm-hmm. So we started to export our garbage to Michigan. Almost 1,000 trucks a week. Mm-hmm. Wow. And it hurts my heart. I'm like, I do school workshops and I say to the kids, wow, shame on us as Canadians for shipping our garbage out of the country. Yep, double shame on the Americans for accepting our garbage for cash. And I'm not shaming the people here. I'm shaming the decision makers, the government, who decided.
It had nothing to do with the people. We didn't even get a vote. We just read about it in the morning paper. I remember I read about it in the Star, the Toronto Star. I woke up, I was like, ooh, and that was when you still read the paper. I mean, it was it was not really internet days, like the internet was there, but you weren't reading CNN on your app or anything like that. You were still reading the paper. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know I didn't even know how this worked. All I knew is, the trucks came, they took the garbage, they left. Wednesday was the day you put your garbage out. That's what I remember, right? And then one morning it's like, ooh, our garbage goes somewhere else. And like all these things came about it. And I was like, where in Michigan? Like, Michigan doesn't have that much space. Where in Michigan are they doing all of our garbage? And why can't we move our garbage 3 hours north? I mean, from Toronto to Sudbury, I mean, there's space there with nothing there. And back in those years, people see Toronto today where the lake all the way to Barrie, Lake Ontario to Barrie is like one strip. But in the 90s, right where the edge of the city of Toronto was on Steeles Avenue, for people who don't know Toronto, go look at this. Like, there are towers there now. It used to be a strawberry farm. I remember at Steeles and Bathurst, there used to be a strawberry farm. You went in, you got a basket, you paid $5.99 or something. You could get as much strawberries as you want and walk out of there with that. And that was just and today Steeles is like middle of the city, North
I
York.
grew up at Young and Steeles.
Well, there you go. Like there was a country club. I remember we were members of this tennis and country club at Bathurst and Highway 7, and a little north of Steeles, the road stopped. You were on
Yes.
gravel, forest land going into Highway 7. And when I tell people today that this Thornhill didn't exist, like there was no Thornhill. Even the 416 to 905 happened during that era, right? The break of the city and all of those things, and it changed so quick, like it was like instant. And then when the garbage thing happened, I was like, but we have all this space. Why are we doing this? But then, like you said, nobody hears about it. Some of those things happened behind closed doors.
Right. And garbage is one of those topics that people don't, they want to just put their garbage at the end of the road. The magic truck comes along and now it's not my problem because it's out of sight, out of mind.
Green bin. As long as I got the blue bin and the green bin right, the rest is none of my business. I don't care what you do with it, where it goes.
Exactly. And so back to 2002. So the landfill closed and we had a garbage strike in the summer of 2002. So we're doubly blessed with garbage problems. And I was watching the news and people were lining up for hours to drop off their garbage. So I said, wow, those people don't compost. If you compost, it takes the stink out of garbage. And I decided to go on a road trip. So I sent out to go and educate people. I'm like, they need to know. I don't know. I really have no idea what caused, the universe. I was paying attention. So I sent out press releases to the Toronto outlets, and 5 minutes after sending my press release to the Toronto Star, a reporter contacted me, largest paper in Canada. Wow. And he said, thank you for your press release. Last week I wrote an article about composting, and I forgot about the apartment dwellers, the 6 million people, maybe it was only 5 million at that time, that live in condos, townhouses, without space to do outdoor composting, and my business is pre-green bin. So I was like, yay, all right, beautiful. So I'm curious. I have a psych degree. I love finding out why people do what they do. So I went to a transfer station that had maybe 80 to 100 picketers. It was a large group, safety in numbers, right? The mob mentality. There was a private investigator recording. He was hired by the city and just to record in case there was any skirmishes. And so I felt a little bit of safety. I don't know why. I have no idea why my husband let me go down to the city to face the union by myself, but he did, pack my lunch. Have a nice day, dear. And he didn't pack lunch. He gave me some lunch money. No, I'm joking. I had my company shirt on, wherever I went, I was always branded. So worm away your garbage, Cathy's Composters on my website. So there I am. Girl on her own, faces the union. Girl disrupts the union from Bradford. And they were yelling all this horrible stuff at me that I can't repeat here. And I stood my ground. They were saying, you have to go, you can't be here, blah, 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 and, swearing and whatnot. Because really, if everybody composted, some of them would be out of a job. But not everybody's going to compost. I mean, they're still not. So they didn't have to worry.
They made a business out of this too, because I remember getting, back in those days, you used to get all this paper stuff in your mail, right? The junk.
Yes.
There was junk coming in that basically will pick up your garbage for a fee.
Yes.
And so they were making a lot of money off of this whole shebang too, right? It was like a two-edged situation for them. So they got to strike, and they still got to collect the garbage because they got their own people to kind of go and do the lineups instead of homeowners. And when they targeted wealthier homeowner spaces, obviously people are like, yeah, sure, I'll give you the $20.
Right. Of course.
But multiply that by 100,
the garbage.
Yeah. And then when you multiply that by 100,000 homes, all of a sudden you're not thinking of the 2 million that everybody just paid, every garbage collection day. That's a lot of money. Today is a lot of money. Think about a quarter century ago.
Exactly. That absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So did you win?
So I don't like conflict. Like, even though I've chosen all these kind of random things that make me so unique and stand out, I don't like standing out. It's so funny that
but it's not conflict. It's not conflict. You are the new. conflict is, when you're fighting the old with another old. I find that's when friction
Oh,
happens.
interesting.
But when I look
Yeah.
at you, I don't look at you as, you're fighting, for example, I don't know, Judaism with Christianity, and they're both archaic. You're fighting Judaism with inclusivity,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I respect your religion, your choices and stuff, but look at it in this way, and it's more inclusive. And now for me, there's no friction there if you're open-minded, right? So
Hmm.
you're not a conflict person, you're a pioneer. And
Hmm.
that's why pioneers don't create friction, because they actually pave the path and
Right.
makes
They're
it
forging
smoother
the
for
way.
everybody. Yeah, you're making it
Yeah.
smoother for everybody else, so you're reducing friction.
Hmm. Well, I say that I don't like conflict because then the police came, and I did.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
The police came, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to have a conflict, so
Okay.
I left. So that's when the police arrived. I just left. I didn't even talk to the police. I just went to the Star.
Right.
I just went right down to the Toronto Star and had my first article in the Toronto Star on July 18th, 2002. And I
Ooh.
called up my husband. I said, "Yay, I got an article in the Toronto Star." Here we go. The universe is a comedian too, apparently. He said, "I'm on my way home. I just got downsized." Oh,
Ooh.
come on. What? And now I joke 20 years later, I'm like, couldn't he have just got downsized tomorrow so I could celebrate my article in the Star? Holy cow. Like we didn't have any income. Like now we sell worms
Mm.
by the pound. Nobody wants what we have. And yikes, that was scary. That was a little bit
Hmm.
scary times. Because it seems like I'm this, you know, path forger. I'm not. I had the courage to start a business because my partner was gainfully employed. I
Yes.
really admire women and people that are on their own, supporting their families, and then they start a business too. I'm like, wow,
Hmm.
that's a lot. Um, yeah, so I joke that at that time the worms ate better than we did, and they eat rotting food and manure. And here we are. Rick decided to join full time with the worm business, so he's the head worm technician. So fun! You can give yourself any title when it's your business. And yeah, it just and so I would have a table wherever I could. I'd have a booth to educate people, and I didn't know people don't buy what they need; they buy what they want, and they didn't want what I had. And I wasn't paying attention, like they say as an entrepreneur to listen to the clients. I clearly wasn't listening because I
Mm.
would have just got a job or something. Because I didn't like it was, I don't have repeat customers because the worms breed more than rabbits. They're just not cute and cuddly, depending who you ask. And I started to do school workshops, Ali, and over 75,000 students have seen my presentation. And it's so beautiful. It's still one of my favorite things, going into the classroom and setting them up with worms. And I've had the privilege of knowing, we make a difference. We make an impact every day. We say hello to someone, we smile at someone, we slam the door in their face. Whatever we do, we're making an impact. We
Hmm.
just don't always know. I've had the privilege of knowing that I've met students more than once have come up to me and said, "Cathy, we had worms in our grade 3 class. Either because of you or because of the worms, I went to university and now I'm an environmental lawyer." Wow, it's huge,
Mm. That is powerful.
right?
That is very powerful. Yeah. To impact an entire life's momentum, to align to what you believe in.
Wow, so
That's
beautiful.
huge. That
And
is
there's a lot of
huge.
younger people, because of climate change and because of the messaging today, young children today really don't have a chance to be children. They're already burdened with all the things that are wrong in the world, and it's drilled into their head from the day
Yeah.
they step into school. They hear these messages that our house is on fire and nobody's doing anything. And yeah, so there's a lot of young people who are stepping up and they want to grow their own food and
Right.
they want to go back into farming. The challenge is the land prices are very expensive. So there's micro farms. Like it really is amazing. We are adaptable people,
Mm.
and we're doing it. We have the solutions, and the world will be fine. The planet will survive, with or without us.
Oh yeah. You know what? Thank you for saying that. The planet will survive with or without us, and flourish without us in amazing ways. And the thing is, that's one thing that I really, really am pushing the, one of Compassiviste's programs, which is Label Your Carbon. It's our, Compassiviste carbon program. And it's not so much about being another environmentalist voice, because the market's flooded with that. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is business minded. It's just become this new industry, And I hope, my hope was, and I still hope, that the people in the industry impact the industry in the same way that the people in the car industry are impacting the car industry, or the people in tech are impacting tech. I mean, there's more technology today than there was 10 years ago. There's more revenue today in technology than there was 10 years ago. So when you look at the growth of technology, I'm not seeing it in environmentalism, because the world is not better than 10 years ago. So something's wrong in the industry. Something is absolutely wrong. There's a lot of money being made. There's a lot of money thrown around. There's a lot of, words coming, SDGs and this and that and whatever. Everybody's making a buck labeling stuff and printing stuff and all of that. But like, where's the work? Show me what you've done in the 10 years. And not many people can show, right? And then you think something's broken in the system. And, when it comes down to it, I think it really has to do with educating the masses, because the masses don't have the real education. And so these pseudo prophets come around like they did 600 years ago or 1,000 years ago in Europe, and we're telling the masses, the Bible says you should, worship your king and give all your money to your king. And it says right here in the Bible. Well, everybody was illiterate. So they believed the priest, and the priest got a chunk of that as commission. And so, the country was doing well, because, the king was happy. So today we're doing the same thing. We have an illiterate mass that I've walked into, Cathy, let me tell you, I've walked into a couple of times. I've walked into climate, what do you call them?
Conference or
no, not conference. The picket fences and protests. The
protests. Okay,
yes, yeah. Why did that skip that word? Anyways, and these are people really, standing in very difficult situations, because there's the G7 going on or something, and water cannons coming at them and police chasing them and all that kind of stuff, right? And they're standing there, and in the calm, I kind of go by people and I say, "Hi, I'm doing an interview for a paper, and I have a question." And they say, "What is it?" And I say, "What do you think carbon is calculated in?" And I don't leave it at that, so they don't have an answer. I say, "Is it kilometers by volume, or is it meters by second pound?" And they make no sense. Both of these terms make absolutely no sense. But because people don't know how to even measure carbon or what carbon is, they start thinking which sounds more like, reasonable or more educated to say. And then they will say one of the two confidently. And then I'll say, "Thank you, that was right." And I keep going. And I think to myself, how many people were going to stop me and say, "That doesn't even make sense. Like, who are you?" Nobody at these protests. And these are people who are like putting their lives at risk at that point, because you could get arrested, anything can happen, the water cannon can hit you the wrong way, you go blind, so many things can happen. Like, you're actually, God bless you, you're there. But which leader is going to come and say, "First, before I put you out on the street, I need you to know what we're fighting for," right? And we don't. Like, I don't know if you watched this, but there was this huge group. They're called Just Stop Oil in the UK, and they go around and they have these like real huge tactics. Like, they'll throw paint on a painting, or soup on a painting and things like that, and they make the news all the time with their antics. But one day, one of the biggest news channels decided, "Okay, we'll give you guys the floor. Come here, live. What are you asking for?" And one of their leaders turned around and said, "By 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, we ask the UK government to stop all oil use." Like, no, that's not going to work. Like, it's just not feasible. Where's your plan?
No.
And that's because you don't have a plan, because you don't know what you're doing. You're really good at marketing. You're really good at creating these situations where you can put on TikTok and Instagram and getting on the news. You're really good at climbing a bridge and getting on the news. But you have absolutely no clue about how to implement a system for change. So we're lacking leadership because we're lacking education. And the governments and the people in charge want that exactly, because
Right.
the less educated the masses, the easier their job gets. They don't have to explain anything anymore. They're like, tomorrow we're taking this lovely step and we're drilling this field. It's going to be amazing for you guys. You're going to have gas stations and Wendy's in each of them right around your house. That's going to be lovely. And if you say it in that tone, people are like, oh yeah, we're going to have Wendy's and gas station. I don't need to drive all the way there to get gas. I can do it right next door to my house. Thank you, government, right? My tax dollars are going to a good place. Now, give a pamphlet this big of education of that drilling and the effects of it to the people, and then tell them the same story. Now you're going to have a riot. Now you're not going to get reelected. Now you can't get commission from that job that you're given to all these people. So, education is key. And I think back then in the beginning, when you were kind of like, what do I do? It really comes down to that. People, zero education. Even today, today, how many people do you meet that you say we're composting and they're like, ew?
Yeah, ew.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Ew,
something you
worms.
get often? Yeah, ew,
All the
worms, right?
time.
And
Ew,
people don't
worms.
know that, there are certain animals, without them, it's finished. It's the end.
Worms are the soil makers.
Yeah. Like, bees, worms, some of the animals we have, like, dude, you don't have them. It's finished. Like, there's no point
Yeah.
fighting. There's no point challenging Exxon or anybody. Like, it's finished, right? And it drives me crazy that people just don't invest into that knowledge, because you care about the climate. Obviously you do, because you look around you and you start caring, but then you don't invest in the knowledge. And
We
so
read
how did it open up for you? Like, how did you go from that point of, your husband comes home, we went on a tangent, but
that's
your
okay.
husband comes home and, downsized, and you have your article, but you're not selling worms, and your business model is wrong. And so the eco-preneur in you comes out and says, this is how I'm going to fix it.
I started speaking. I don't have the fear of public speaking that many have. I'll speak at my own funeral. It's fine.
Just play the tape.
Wouldn't that be fun?
You know what? I attended I attended a funeral where the person had prepared a video, but this is because they knew they were going to pass away. Not that they were that crazy, but they knew they were going to pass away, and they wanted to leave something for their grandchildren at the funeral. And so there was there was a video played, and I was like, oh my God. And then everybody started crying. It was so awful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I know.
No, that would be brutal.
Yeah. Don't do that.
No, I'm not doing that. No,
Okay.
don't worry. Don't worry, family members, if you're watching.
Yeah.
So I started to do school workshops, and then just started speaking, and I chose media as my marketing strategy. So I'm one of those experts at getting attention. And because whenever I was at a show, media, if it was big enough show, media would be there. And you know who the media are. They've got a media badge that says media, or they have a big camera or something. So they have a clipboard.
They're not hidden.
They're not hidden. They're not hidden. And they're looking for a story. So I became an expert on how to get attention. And if the media walked past my booth without stopping at my booth, I would chase after them with worms. Because video people, they loved, like when I had a handful of worms, they loved watching the worms squirming around. Like, it was compelling recording anyway.
Right.
So I've had over 300 articles, TV, radio. And so media begets media. And so it was just getting bigger. I would get booked for more speaking gigs, going into corporate to set them up with worms. So it took on a life of its own. I really didn't have to do much work as far as getting attention, because I was so good at getting attention. And it's much more valuable to have an article in the Star than paying for an ad in the Star. Return on investment, or whatever they say. And so I was doing all these shows, and then and I'd heard worms in the house, oh gosh, maybe thousands of times, really. And I wasn't listening. I was like, okay, next, move along, get away from my booth. In a nice way, like energetically, I'd like, okay, move away. Because because worm has a bad energy, like can of worms. Parasites are often worms, a tapeworm, computer viruses are often called worms. So the word worm has a bad energy attached. And so I started to do, and so I wasn't paying attention. In 2012, it was a big year. One more person said, "Ew, worms in the house." 10 years into my worm mission. And I was like, oh, I heard it. I felt it. I questioned everything. And I was like, oh, universe, what do you want from me? 10 years, I've been trying my best I thought it would be a household word by now. I thought it'd be laying on a beach somewhere. Not really. I don't like the beach, but anyway. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I'm very fast. I get an idea. I'm like, okay, let's go. I want it to come to life. So the very next day, the very place I took my business course, I was attending a business meeting, and the speaker did a 5-minute introduction into laughter yoga. And I don't even do regular yoga. I know yoga's a fine thing. I jumped right to the fun yoga. I was like, laughter yoga, what's that? I'd never heard of it. And that same week, again, pay attention to the signs, people. That same week, 2012, I was at a networking event, hundreds of people. The very first woman I met was a laughter yoga teacher. And I said to her, well,
Wow.
laughter yoga's mainstream. Like twice in 1 week.
It's catching on, I know.
Like, whatever. Okay, whatever, new thing. And she said, no, it is. I think she got offended. She was like, no, it isn't. And so we trooped around together, and everyone we met, I'd said, have you heard of laughter yoga? Have you? Nobody had heard of it. And I said, wow, okay. And there's no coincidence. Her laughter club, Toronto's a massive city. Her laughter club was 5-minute walk from my mother-in-law's place in North York. I was like, what? So my mother-in-law, she passed in 2021, but she was so beautiful. She said to people, whenever Cathy asked me to do something, I say yes, because it's always an adventure. So I called her up and I said, hey, Mary, you want to go to laughter yoga with me? And she said, what's that? And I said, I don't know, but I don't want to go alone. So we went to laughter yoga, and it was weird. Like it's odd. So anytime we do something new, it's new. And it's new for our brain. And, you start a new job. It's like, oh, I hope am I going to be able to do, am I going to like the people, like all the questions. So we went to laughter yoga, and, we were sitting in a circle, and we kept on looking at each other, like doing the side eye thing, like, oh, this is really strange. And it was, we played along. We did what we were told. And when we left, we're walking back to her condo, and I said, wow, that was really odd. That was weird. And yeah, that was so weird. And I was like, wow, I feel great. How do you feel? Yeah, I feel great too. And it was a monthly club. So we would go out for dinner, and my mother-in-law was so beautiful. She would say, we better not have garlic. And I'd say, no, as long as we both have it, it's fine. And so it was kind of just a fun thing. It was our date night. We'd go for laughter. We'd go for dinner, go to laugh. So I didn't take it serious. It was just a fun thing. And then her club was at Shepherd and Yonge, Condoville now. So 20,000 people live at that corner. And
yes. You know what?
Right?
I used to live there in the Tridel buildings at one point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
The three identical towers. I used to live there, and there were at that point, you're right, 16,000 people lived in that, block. And imagine the morning drive out, and it was a mess. But
right.
Yeah.
But so she had to close her club, 3 months in, because the numbers kept dwindling. Like we started with 10, then we were 8, and then 9, or then 6. I can't count apparently. And then, so she said, she was renting space. She said, I got to close my club. Like it's a business. And I was sad. I was like, oh no. I looked around. I was like, they just don't know. We just need 10 people. They don't know this super fun thing is right here. It's marketing, right? So I got trained as a laughter yoga leader. I loved it so much. I got trained as a teacher. Now I teach leaders. And in 2017, I was appointed laughter ambassador. And I take that moniker very seriously, because laughter is the best medicine. It's in us all, waiting to burst out. We just need to employ it. And so I've been laughing since 2012, really laughing since 2020, when the world shut down. Before 2020, there's kind of an unwritten principle or rule that you'll start a free laughter club. So let me just talk about laughter yoga for a sec. It started in 1995 by a medical doctor, Dr. Madan Kataria. His goal is world peace. Like, what a great mission. Wow, world peace, so beautiful. And I believe it's possible. So it started in 95. There are clubs around the world. About 120 countries have laughter clubs. And I believe it was started in 1995, so we would be ready for 2020 when the world shut down. Even Dr. Kataria believed that we needed to be in person to get the benefits. But then we shut down and we needed to jump online. So we all did. We're so adaptable. We're really amazing. Humans are incredible how adaptable we are. I remember in 2020, I mean, I didn't know how to use Zoom, and now I'm a Zoom expert. I wish I had shares.
In so many things.
Right. So now you can laugh 24/7, free, online. And it does work because, as you experienced at my club, we have gallery view, and it is about making contact and connecting and laughing, not jokes or comedy, because those are cultural, like two people going somewhere. It's not funny for those two people. So when we're laughing, we're secreting the love drugs, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Sometimes people do drugs or drink or sex or whatever they do to get those hits. Imagine being able to get those hits whenever we want, just by laughing. So beautiful. I think the most important piece for laughter is the oxygen. Our brain requires 25% more oxygen than the rest of our body as an operating principle, right? It's a machine, the answering machine. So fun. I love that line. So when we're stressed, and today we're living in this perpetual state of stress. It's not our friend. It really is a killer. And when we're in it, we have two nervous systems, and only one is operating at a time. Like, it does go back and flip-flop back and forth. The more time we spend in our sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, the less time we are in rest and digest. And when we're under stress, we're secreting cortisol, adrenaline, epinephrine, the stress chemicals. Our frontal lobe kind of shuts down. Blood, lymph, oxygen leaves our frontal lobe and goes into our muscles so we can escape from the stress, even though the stress is in our house or in our mind. And we're not breathing, right? We're not breathing properly. So, and I'll use the example of losing your keys. Like, if you've ever lost your keys and you're flapping around, you got to go, but you lost your keys. How do I, So we're flapping around looking for our keys, getting more stressed because we can't find our keys. So we're like, we're going to be late. Whatever's going to happen. What we need to do is stop, take a deep breath in, start laughing, ha ha ha, apologize to all the people we just yelled at, and then we find our keys, phone, glasses, whatever you've misplaced. Because our brain is literally deprived of oxygen. It can't help you. So I think that the oxygen is the most important piece, but there's many. And there's many, many, many. And here's the thing, Ali, there's about 50 years of research showing that laughter is beneficial for our health. And if that's true, and it is true, why is it so challenging for us to achieve abundant, sustainable, reliable laughter for our health? The frontal lobe, like the critical mind, right? As adults, we hear a joke and it goes through all these filters very quickly. Like, is this funny? I've heard this joke before. Well, is it safe to laugh here with these people? What will they think? So all of those things, once we decide that the joke is funny and we can laugh, it's conditional, and then we're not going to laugh for 5 minutes to get do our laughter yoga. We're just going to laugh, haha, and then we're on to the next thing. You see children, although, people say that children laugh all the time. I would suspect that since 2020, even children are laughing less. Our world is different.
It is very different. It's changed so much. And you know what? It's changed so much generationally too. I look at kids today, and let's take the U.S. as an example. There was another horrible school shooting yesterday, and kids go to school today and they have this constant fear, because I speak with kids of friends, and they have this constant fear when they go to school and they come back, and the parents have this fear of, is today my school's day,
Wow.
and you have that fear. And I can assure you that in the 1960s, parents had no fear of their school getting shot up or mass shootings in schools, right?
Yeah.
It was not a concept. And today, like you said, that's just one aspect, right? I remember
Right.
that because this just happened yesterday. And so, but you take this idea of all the new stressors that are in our world today, from the onset of the pandemic and to now, and it becomes a very difficult place, like you said, to laugh. And then you add into it our cultural issues as well, because like you said, as soon as you said, our mind starts, the filters come on, and I thought to myself, yeah, you're right, because when I was younger, you could laugh about everything, it was fine. But today you have to be like, well, if I laugh at this, is this group going to think that, I'm laughing at them? Am I ruining my allyship here? Is this diplomatic to laugh at this joke right now in this scenario with these people? Somebody has a camera. If I laugh, they're going to use this against me. And so many things happen that by the time that I can't even laugh, it's like, oh, it's past. It's not even funny anymore, right? And like you said, you're just shutting your ability to be happy. And so
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
do? We go into the things that provide those things that nature had created laughter for. So,
Mm.
when you talk about all the beautiful elements we receive from laughter, well, I can get that from, like you said, some drugs or some alcoholism and things like that, in that spike of a moment, right? Unhealthily. So I'm like, I can't do it naturally because there's all these regulations for natural laughter. So I have to do it, even though it may be more dangerous, more illegal, more negative in every possible way. This still seems the better way of getting my endorphins. So I'm going to go do the drugs. And so
Mm.
now those numbers spike, and then the mental health issues and everything else happens. And if you just allow laughter back into people's lives, the cost to the government will be a lot less for treating everything that's going on, because it's getting treated naturally.
That's it. Well, you said school, so I would say education centers and religious centers used to
Mm,
be the safe haven. You could go to school,
yes.
no problem. You could go to your church, synagogue, what your religious place, and know that you were safe there. And that's not the case. That's also not the case anymore.
No.
Yeah, so the answer is laughter yoga, because it's laughing without jokes or comedy. It's connecting us. And there's some amazing work around the world. Oh, I'm so moved, because we do have global laughter conferences, and it's incredible. I remember in 2021, I was at the laughter conference, and there was a gentleman, a laughter professional from Mexico, working in the prison system. These young men, 18, 19, they made a mistake, they got caught, and now they're felons.
Mm,
So they did it was like a 30-day, I'm sure it's ongoing, but they did a 30-day trial with the laughter. So they took pictures of them before, and they look like thugs. They look like hardened criminals. 30 days in, it's like the laughter connects us. It helps us secrete the love drugs. We feel good. Somebody cares. Somebody is spending time with us and helping us. And then you can connect on a deeper level with the other players in with you. And so the photos at the end of the 30 days, wow, it was remarkable. They just changed. They just look softer and more approachable. And same, I mean, they've done work with police. So imagine police, before they send them out, be safe out there, in the roll call room or whatever it is, where they
mhm,
say all the things that
mhm,
happened. And then they go out and do their rounds. Imagine having them do a giggle session before. I mean, police are hard because they're not meant to laugh. So there is a different way to do it. But imagine, then they go out there, because it's energy. That's why laughter is so beautiful. Everything's energy. So when we're laughing, we're up here. When we're sad and we're depressed and we're angry, we're vibrating at a very low rate. And it's like the radio, tuning your radio station. When we're laughing, it's beautiful music. It's laughter. We feel good, versus when we're shouting or screaming or doing, all of those things. And not, I'm not discounting emotions. Our emotions are just energy in motion. That's it. Feel your emotions. What is this? Look at it and then let it go. Don't hold on to it. And I think that's one of the things. Expressing anger in our society is not acceptable. So what do? We squish it down. We swallow it. We're like, okay. And then that gets piled on top and piled on top. Then we might get digestive issues because, it's in our belly. So sometimes, Ali, when people come to laughter,
you get ulcers, right?
Right?
Yeah,
Or
just as an example,
and,
you get ulcers, and that's painful. So
of course.
you can understand how that concept that you don't understand, you can't touch or see, the intangible, like anger, goes into your body, and then it becomes this ulcer that you can see with endoscopy or anything else, and you can see it. You can see this bubbling acidic space in your stomach, and you're like, that's the ulcer right there, and that is the anger that was up there that I couldn't see, but now you can see it. So it's a fact. That's the most important thing people need to understand here is what you're talking about is fact. It's not somebody who is like, you know what, I really feel laughter works for me, so it should work for you, and I'm trying to ask you to try it on and see if it works for you. It's not one of those things that you're going to see on the shopping network or trying to sell something, right? It's a science. What you're talking about is a science.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
That's the important part.
It's changed my life. So I've been laughing since 2012, really laughing since 2020. I took a deep dive into the expression "laughter is the best medicine," and it's proof. It's proven. It's reality. And so since 2020, I laugh every day. I have a laughter buddy. She calls me in the morning. I don't say hello every day since December 2021. It's really magic process. We laugh full on for 2 minutes. No words.
I think the habit gets created too, right? Because I'm just thinking, when you said that, I automatically laughed because I'm thinking, I have a friend who's really he's really funny, super funny, right? I always tell him you should go into comedy. Like you just stand on the stage, people are going to start laughing, and he just doesn't listen. Kind of like a Russell Peters kind of character, right? It's just naturally funny, not scripted funny. And the minute he gets on a call with me, it could be a serious call, I start laughing because I just remember how funny this person. He's like, Ali, this is serious. And I'm like, just 1 minute, and I'm just laughing. And then that all gets out. I'm like, okay, serious, let's talk, I just can't help it. So when you said laughing buddy, I was like, that's my laughing buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, so people will say, how can I laugh? There's so many things going on in the world. Well, it's easy to laugh when things are fine. You don't need a laughter club when things are fine, but that's the thing. We need the maintenance. People will have a big to-do list. Okay, I got all these things to do. I don't have time to go to the gym because look at all these things I have to do. Look at my list. It's like, well, you need to put you at the top of the list. You need to be up here. And that's what I've done since 2020. There's no room at the inn. I don't know about other countries, but in Canada, there's no room at the hospital. You got to look after yourself. Right. So self-care is precious. I'm so important that I take care of me. I look after me first. So when my cup is full, now I can give to you, and I can give more because I've got lots. And so I have a morning, again, since 2020, my goal is to live to 111. No joke. That's the end date that I've set for, or better, or longer, at least to 111. And I want to be living independently. I want to still be leading laughter and be vibrant and beautiful like today. So I in order for that to happen, I'm 62 now. So I got another 50 years to go, or maybe my math is wrong again. I've got around. Yeah, right. I've got 50. I'm middle-aged today. It's so fun. I love it. But in order for that to be true, I need to be vibrant and healthy and do my self-care. So first thing in the morning, I get up early. I always go to bed around the same time, wake up at the same time, and I go outside and I earth, which is standing barefoot. I get exposed to the earth's energy, because that's another thing. Since we started wearing shoes, we're disconnected from the earth's beautiful energy. So this energy gets stuck in our body. Going out, it helps to get the bad energy out and absorb the good energy in. First light on our eyes, so first sunlight resets our melatonin so we can sleep better at night. And screens are another villain, because we're exposed to all this blue light, and our body's secreting serotonin and keeps us awake. Our body thinks it's noon all the time because we have lights and whatever. So we need to turn down our lights at night. Wear blue blockers if you're going to be on your screens. There's really simple things. And then tapping and laughing, all these things are very simple. But I wanted to talk about the laughter. What happened? You know, it really has been squished out of us. And it was the like Aristotle and Plato, back the Greeks, because Plato, because they deemed laughter as frivolous.
Yes.
Right. The more educated you were. So Ali, you would not be laughing if you were Greek.
No.
You would not be laughing, because the more educated you are, the less you laugh, because nobody would take you serious.
And that's how the Epicurean backlash happened in Greece, right? I mean, that's part of the whole Greek growth, is that backlash happened because, like, no, I don't subscribe to this. I want to be happy. And it wasn't really about the way we, today Epicureanism is synonymous with, like, debauchery of some sort. But it wasn't. If you go back to Epicurus himself and the group living that he had created, they were very productive people. They were functional people of society. There weren't orgies going on in back then in their spaces, and the things that we think that's what Epicureanism is about, and eating plenty and just laying there all day and doing nothing. It was actually a very, very productive community, but they took upon themselves to, like you say, laugh and enjoy life, versus that Socratic Plato, learning from that, and then Aristotle, and that lineage of, you got to be serious, everything's about just how serious you are in war, and then the stoicism and everything else, like, don't even like crack a smile because you're stoic.
Be serious.
That really killed emotion for a while there.
And I think it's still in our DNA.
Yes.
Which is why people say, I can't laugh, there's too many things going on. It's like, how can I laugh?
Even in culture, so many cultures, like, if you crack out laughing in so many places, you're not classy anymore. There's so many ways that people think it's disrespectful, it's not appropriate. Oh, you're at a fancy restaurant, don't laugh out loud. But hey, and then you do if you do laugh out loud, and if your table's hysteric, everybody's looking at that thing. I want to be that. What's happening at that table? Because I want to be at that table. I don't want to sit with you anymore. This is boring. We're talking about stocks and stuff. Like, no, I want to be there. These people have the time of their lives. And I used to do that. When we had meetings, in the financial district area of Toronto, there were a lot of restaurants that were really primarily for people like us, which have business lunches and stuff. And then once in a while, you'd get a group of people who'd show up. Like, there'd be some women who, I don't know, had a lunch date there, or some guys who had a lunch date there who were working downtown that day or something. And they were just happy people. And they would laugh and talk and all these lovely things at the table. And all the other tables are just, dark gray suits and serious people, and just, wasn't fun. And then you notice that one table, you're like, you know what? I'm willing to pay the bill for that table, but just please let me sit at your table. I need this. I need this, right? And so now when you talk about it, and I totally endorse it, because it's the same thing that happened with me with meditation. All this time I traveled through India and some parts of east of that, Thailand and other places. I was exposed to a lot of monasteries, a lot of Buddhism, a lot of Hinduism, and because I love education. So when I used to travel, I used to do the touristic things, but then I used to always find not a conventional tour. I used to try to hire a university professor in history and culture and stuff within the area that I'm in. And I'd spend the day with them. I'm like, what would you charge me to spend the day with me?
Wow.
And I know it sounds like offbeat, but I used to do that. And I would pay them, and they would actually take me around and teach me culturally and
Mm.
historically about the town, right? And so many things. And I got exposed to so much yoga and meditation and things like that, even, by monks and whatnot. And I just couldn't pick up on it because I was in this financial mindset, and this was just
Mm.
my vacation mode, right? And when I came back, there was none of it. And
Mm.
then when I put all that aside, literally put that in the garbage and continued my life in 2016, I was like, all these things I learned, let me see which one of them actually works. And then I was like, wow, meditation, that's like a whole new door to a different you, to knowing yourself, right? I started
Mm.
knowing myself and at a different level. And then I started researching more. And then I learned it's actually a science. You can cure things through meditation
Mm.
that you cannot cure with some of the modern tech that we have. And I say this sometimes, people think I'm crazy, but my mom had breast cancer. She went through chemo and radiation therapy, and they even removed her breast and all that, and there was still cancer, and there was still worry, and there was still more they had to do. And a family friend is a meditation teacher, but in self-healing and healing practices and all of that. And so she gave it a shot. She just gave it a shot, right? and
Mm.
and through this person's leadership and connection and teaching her, after a few months of certain trainings and a different philosophy of life and even nutrition and all of that, like uh, there's foods like sprouts and stuff that like people don't know how effective they are to healing,
Mm.
until you get into it. And so a few months later, she goes back to Sunnybrook cancer ward, right? And at that hospital, they look at her chart, they look, and they're bewildered, right? They're like, "What's going on? We got to send her back to the test." They send her again to the testing, and then she comes back again, and they look again, and like, this can't be. They're like, "What happened to the cancer? Like,
Mm.
it didn't shrink. It's not. It's like you never had cancer,
Wow.
literally, right? You never had cancer."
Mm.
And they were shocked, and they couldn't like agree. And then the doctors were all like, something's wrong, blah blah blah, whatever. And then some doctors said, well, the radiation maybe took longer and we didn't know and it killed it and whatever, or the last time we took pictures was too early. And they started coming up with these reasons, right, to
Mm.
validate it for themselves, right? But the truth of it was, there is science out there that we're dogmatically not allowing to become mainstream. And laughter is one of those sciences because you can test it interactively. When you do these, we use it when we think it's advantageous. Like, look at all these dating gurus and coaches and stuff. Make a girl laugh.
Mm.
That's like the one number one thing that they'll teach you, right? You can have all the money in the world, you can have all the biggest muscles in the world and everything, you can be the best looking guy, but if you can't make a girl laugh, it's not going to work.
Mm.
They still use this. And so, and so you're thinking, okay, make the girl laugh. I got to be funny, right? And so, why is that? Why is that? Then you got to think, why is that? Because the muscles, I understand, you go into the archaic mind and the girl's thinking, because it's only been 100 years where the girl doesn't have to worry about a man protecting her. But the
Right.
mind's not developed in that speed, right? The mind's still thinking big muscles, protection. Okay, I'm having babies with this man, right?
Right.
That's how the
Yes.
mind's thinking. So I understand the muscle because science has taught me that. I understand the income, the wealth. He's got a Rolex on, he's got a Rolls Royce parked outside. Okay, I understand that. Why? Because again, the mindset goes protection, you know, uh, abundance, all those things. They function that way. Uh, we can't blame a woman for thinking that way because millions of years of that mindset. So now you got to think, but the laughter works too. The laughter really works. Why does the laughter work? I mean, it's not going to, uh, in that
Pay the bills.
mindset, it's not going to pay the bills. It's not going to deter the lion from attacking her. So what the hell's the laughter for? Like, what is that doing? It's doing something that it's peak. After laughter comes the money, the muscle, all the other things that the coach is teaching you. But the coach is primarily teaching you this. You see it in all the books, you see it in all these magazines and articles and everything else. So you got to start thinking. Then I think of my own experiences, since I spoke with you and since I came to your laughter show, which we're going to put the link down, guys, at the bottom of the show, because you need to check this out. It's really cool. So if you have time, click on it, join the Zoom meeting with the laughter club, so to speak. But I started thinking back, and I remember this one time I made a right turn where I shouldn't, because I was picking up a friend who lived right at the edge of the right turn on the street, on a one-way dead end street. But for me to it wasn't, sorry, not a dead end street, it was a one-way street to get to, and for me to get to that one way, I had to go around the whole block and come in that side, right? I was like, oh, it's the first house, I'm just going to go in back into the driveway and drive out when they get in. And so unbeknownst to me, there's a police officer there.
Oh no.
And so I pull in, and I pull into the driveway, and police officer pulls in front. He comes out, and he's smiling and laughing, and he comes up to my car, and he's laughing, and so I start laughing too, right? And I'm like, I got caught red-handed, I'm laughing, and he's laughing. He's like, you know why I'm laughing? And I said, no. He's like, I was actually turning the other way, and I thought to myself, where is this guy going? Because he can't go down this street, because that next street, there's no way out. Like, it's a one-way in. So where is he thinking of going? Because if he was going on to that next street, it would be easier for him to go around, because the continuity would be easier, right? So it just makes no sense. So I had to watch you. And lo and behold, you make the turn. And I was like, now I really am invested in this scene, because where is he going? And then you go into the first house, and I'm like, it makes absolute sense. It makes sense. He's not crazy. It makes sense. So he's telling me this while he's laughing, and I'm laughing, and he's laughing. He's like, so I'm going to write you up, because, I saw it, so I have to write you up. But I'm going to write you something where you don't have to go to court. You don't have to worry about insurance stuff. There's going to be something like, it'll be memorable for us. And I was like, okay. I like memorable. Thank you. And it was all funny. I laughed, and I took the ticket and I paid it. And I'm still laughing about it now. About 25 years later, I'm still laughing about it,
so
right?
good.
So you see what I mean? He could have, sirens on, blocked me into the driver, get out. What the hell are you doing? There's a one-way, yell at me for a minute, and then give me a license, and then give me a harsh ticket, and then show up to court and ruin my life and all those things. But no, he's like, I know exactly why you did what you did. I understand. It's funny. It was a funny situation. And here's something for you to just remember not to do it again,
Right.
And that laughter, the way he interacted with me, I was like, oh man, I'd pay tickets every day if this was the case.
Right.
I don't want to I don't want to be in that situation or do illegal things. But the thing is, it's very different when you approach in that way, right? Imagine a police officer dancing towards you or laughing towards you. Like, you're just, everything's going to be so much more mellow than when they walk towards you with their hand on their gun holster. And you're like, oh
That's
my God,
it.
don't draw that, please. I don't want to die. I was just speeding. Like, don't, right?
That's it.
And it's happened. It happens all the time, right? It's just the way we interact with each other. And I think when you start speaking with people with laughter and smiling, it just de-escalates everything so much.
It changes everything. And there's a thing in our brain called mirror neurons. Have you heard of mirror neurons? Yeah. So mirror neurons is, for those listening, when you're walking down the street and you smile at someone, usually they smile back, or you see somebody sad, maybe you feel sad. That's the mirror neurons. And that's why laughter is so kind of contagious, as they say, because we see somebody laughing. We want to laugh. We want to feel good. And I think there is, you talked about the tiger getting us. Laughter is not a great survival technique, because if we were all, we can only laugh when we're feeling safe. Because when we're laughing full on, like the good belly laugh, our knees get weak. So we couldn't even run away, even if we had to. Like, it would just get us going. Oh, thanks for laughing. Good. Right. So it's really, and why do people laugh at inappropriate times? Like at the funeral, or if we see
some
somebody.
sort of stress coping mechanism too.
It is. It's our body saying, like you're too stressed. Here's something to release some
Let
of those,
release, yes.
right? The release, we get the oxygen, we secrete the love drugs, and it's just a built-in mechanism for survival, even though we can't escape.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just it's one of those things that I hope you, the whole organization, and everybody involved really starts to be able to bring this out into the mainstream in terms of education and practice, because I really think that the change of mindset also changes the ways we start valuing life. When you're miserable and depressed and just not having it, you're not thinking of life in the same abundance and beauty and love that you do when you're laughing and happy, right? When you're laughing and you're happy and everything's beautiful, and say you're traveling or you're at home, wherever you're with people who love you, and you look out, you want to see that beauty around you, and you want to expand on it, and you want to, you know, make more of this, right? Whereas when you're miserable, you're just not involved or invested in the world anymore, because it's just, it's dark. So you don't mind the
Right.
darkness around you because you're dark, and I think if we are able to lighten our moods and just become happier, and one way of doing that is through laughter, we end up becoming more effective in our presences as well. People want to be more like you. They want to make the decisions and choices you're making. You yourself want to make better choices. You start littering less. You start being rude less. You start being friendlier, more compassionate. Laughter and compassion go hand in hand, because,
Mm.
when you start um, allowing happiness to kind of come into your life, you want to, as you said, your cup is full. You want to give that, water that's in your cup that's, overflowing to others. So you want to give that happiness to others. So that's compassion at work, right? It activates compassion. So in so many ways, um, it really supports a lot of things that people cannot connect to. Like, don't just think about laughter as, okay, I'm going to find a laughter buddy. I'm going to laugh for half an hour a day and see how this goes. No, try to incorporate it into your life. And
Into everything.
yes. And,
Yes.
I had a teacher, a martial arts teacher, and the martial arts I did really focuses on kind of using the other person's energy to subdue them, not to hurt them, and to de-escalate the situation. Versus some martial arts that's like, let me kill you as soon as I can. So um, throughout that, one of the first lessons of my teacher was, when somebody aggressive steps up to you, no matter how scared you may be, no matter how you're ready to fight, no matter how defensive you want to get, you need to show no tension in your face, so your muscles
Mm.
can't tense, and you have to smile. It has to become natural. We're going to practice this so much. We're going to, he's like, I'm going to throw my hand at your face so many times until you stop blinking and going like this and
Mm.
shrugging and all of that. We just smile, and that smile is going to more than not de-escalate situation,
Yeah.
and in the interaction, and you don't need to apply your martial arts knowledge at that point.
Mm.
This is part of the martial arts, and so laughter is part of that. I mean, you're conveying this message around, not just for your own endorphins, for your own goodnesses, but globally. You're walking around with this aura of things that people want, and we also don't understand the science of auras and frequencies and stuff. But imagine the halo effect, right? I mean, people didn't come up with the halo out of the blue.
Mm.
Believe me, there was some science there that they could see that we today are blocked from for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. And that halo happens in those beautiful colors when you're laughing, when you're happy, when all the right energies in you are elevated. So when I speak with you, that happens to me. I naturally become happier.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm laughing. We're having a good conversation. Like you said, the world around us is falling apart in every which way, and we're still here laughing, right? It's not that we're
Yeah.
laughing because we're ignorant. We just got so drunk that we're laughing at every misery. No, we understand the miseries, and we're actually maybe more than many trying to focus on helping overcome these miseries. But we are also learning and applying the fact that we need to be healthy first, and we need to be laughing first, and we need to be able to approach these situations from that perspective. So, I really appreciate the point of view you bring to the discussion, and all the things we've learned from you. Now, I also know, aside from laughter, you went from your worm business into sprout business.
Yes.
Can you share a minute about that?
Yes. So back to 2002, it was a big year. My life seems to go in 10-year chunks where big things happen. So 2002, at my very first event exhibiting, I met the gentleman of the sprout grower that I've been using for 22 years and selling since 2012. And it was it's like it's the size of a dinner plate. You can sprout in any units, but this is the size of a dinner plate, food grade plastic, stainless steel mesh, and it looks like a spaceship. And the spaceship thing was flying off the shelf. So when there was a break in the audience, I said, "What is that thing? And why is everyone buying that and not my worms?" So this gentleman, Tony, was he's still alive. He's 96 now. He was a professional ballroom dancer. 72 in 02. So he had his white crisp shirt on, his black vest. He was a gentleman. And I come from an employee background, so I didn't know anybody that worked at 72. And so I was impressed, first of all, because if you do any exhibiting, it's kind of a challenge because you're putting your life on the line, and people ask for a discount and whatever, they say things. So I didn't know about sprouts or sprouting, and he said it's a sprout grower and told me all about sprouts. So I'm going to tell you what I've interpreted since using sprouts for 22 years. I don't go a day without sprouts now. Sprouts are nature's original superfood. They grow in a day or two, so they're fast growing. It's just a seed, and this is a hydroponic unit, so done in water. Sprouts are hydrating, alkalizing, regenerative, biogenic, and contain up to 100 times more digestive enzymes than raw vegetables. As soon as we cook them, no more enzymes, still vitamins, protein, all the other things. So I've been eating sprouts. So in 2002, Tony said, okay, if you're going to do this, start your day with 2 tablespoons of sprouted mung beans. And mung beans are the bean sprouts from Chinese food, the white beans. They're just grown a different way, and they're organic. Which they might not be in Chinese food. Okay, I don't know. He said, if you're going to do this, start your day with 2 tablespoons of sprouted mung beans. First thing, for the enzymes. So for 10 years, it was my private health plan. That's what I did. And then in 2012, again, 10 years later, I was at an event. There's Tony exhibiting too. And I would always go over whenever we were exhibiting at the same shows. And we were often at the same shows because he was doing eco stuff and sustainability and health and wellness. I would always go over and say to the people at his booth, "Oh, you should buy one of those. It's really great." And I'm sure people thought it was a plant. Haha, it was a sprout. And he said, "Hey, why don't you sell the sprouter and beans with your worm business?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what a great idea. Why don't I do that? I love this product." So then I started to have the sprouter. So my booth was very confusing. Worms on one end, sprouters on the other. And and one day, a woman came up to me and she said, "What else can you sprout?" And I didn't know because I'd only sprouted mung beans.
This, right?
And she said, "Well, don't you get sick of mung beans?" And I said, "It's my health plan. Would you get sick of feeling great and having tons of energy?" I mean, people love their story. I'm so tired. Oh, woe was me. And then I thought, well, as an entrepreneur, what do I care if they want mung beans or they don't like mung beans or whatever? So I started to experiment, and you can sprout anything. Chickpeas, lentils, mung beans, fenugreek, radish, any seed can be sprouted. And most, not all, kidney beans you don't eat as raw sprouted beans. Do your due diligence, but most you can eat them raw, and they're delicious, they're nutritious, and they're fast, and they're affordable. So we didn't talk about it today, but one of the challenges today is food shortages. Like we hear all this stuff about there's not enough food. There's lots of food. There's no shortage of food because we can go out on the front lawn and eat the weeds.
Mm.
But they say that we should spray them. That's so we don't eat them, I guess.
Yes.
Right? That's a whole nother episode. But
Mhm.
so the sprouts are really simple, nutritious, delicious, affordable food. Everybody can afford to sprout.
Hear that from Cathy and do it. I have one last question for you. Your connection to Down syndrome. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so I'm creating a laughter program for young adults with Down syndrome. And this came to me again, being divinely guided on a walk in the forest in 2020. And I saw this whole movie of what was coming. I was training young adults with Down syndrome to be laughter yoga leaders. And since 2020, I've had a few experiences in that realm. And it's come and gone. Like, I'm very fast. I want things to happen right away. It's still in the works. And if anyone listening is connected, if you're a parent of a child with Down syndrome, or you just want to do work in this industry, this is going to change the world for some people. Down syndrome doesn't know borders, and it doesn't know socioeconomic status. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
And and folks with Down syndrome, they have a lot of health issues. They have a thing called gummy ear, so they don't hear properly. So if you know anyone with Down syndrome, they often don't speak clearly because they speak like they hear. So if you say computer, they might hear pewter. So that's what they say. So any teachers listening, your students with Down syndrome need to sit at the front. They often have glasses. Nobody wants to wear their glasses, so but they need to sit at the front so they can hear better and they can see better and they're more engaged. They have often doughy bodies because they don't sweat like the rest of the population. And they often get overexerted with physical activity. So laughter is a beautiful thing for them to do because it doesn't take a lot of explanation. It's more like Simon Says, like, do what I'm doing. And so that's why I really am excited about creating this program. I don't know what it's going to look like exactly. Thank you for asking, because I do want to say that whenever I'm on a podcast or a show, because you don't know who's listening and who can help with this. I'm really looking for powerful people with money that can help fund this and help me create what I need to create, because it's going to change the world for the families and for the individuals. As you probably know, in Canada, at age 21, young adults with special needs are aged out of the school system. They're graduated out and they're put on a program called ODSP, which is disability pension, which is a meager pension. It's not enough to live on. And if they work for money, that it gets clawed back from their meager pension. Like, it's the system's really broken. And it's not about money. Most young adults, I mean, most people just want to be part of something.
Yes.
We want to be a part. And back to 2020.
The community matters a lot more than the financial goal.
Right. Isolation is a killer. And I recently heard that isolation is more harmful for everybody, not just special needs. It's more harmful to our health than smoking, drinking, and obesity combined. Isolation. And that's
we're social, we're social beings.
We're social. So there was a giant...
You got to know that.
But there was a giant experiment in 2020, a global experiment on isolating people. And a lot of people are still struggling.
Yes.
We can't end on that sad note, though.
No, but well said.
Thank you.
And yes, and part of the reason why I've also decided to endorse your laughter program, your laughter yoga at Compassiviste, is exactly to allow this side of your program, helping more vulnerable people to shine. So we're also going to put this on our foundation page and tie it into the cause for people to be able to donate into it and support, so that we can support you growing the program you really want to grow for Down syndrome. And we're going to put the links to your laughter yoga that happens every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern.
9:30.
9:30 Eastern. Don't show up at 10. It ends then. 9:30 Eastern. Yes. So we're gonna try to get this going, so to speak.
Oh, Ali,
And
thank you. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's
no,
so
don't
so
thank me. You're
generous.
doing the
Thank you.
work. You're doing the work. All I'm doing is trying to bring a friend or two to take advantage of the work you're doing. It's not thank you, Ali. It's thank you, Cathy, because we're just joining in on the good work you're doing. We're not doing anything to be thanked for.
Well, it's the connections, right? It's
But
connecting up.
that's duty. That's not something you thank people for. That's duty.
Hmm.
That's my duty as being part of your community to try to help more people. And I really wish sometimes that people look at life that way, that they look at
Hmm.
life as a series of duties
Hmm.
that have positive social impact, and
Well,
things would be very
altruism
different.
isn't just a nice thing to do. It's part of our human
Yeah,
condition.
it is. And you got to keep that muscle going, right? You got to keep it active. You can't just let it just be useless in your life.
Mm.
Now,
So
last
beautiful.
question. And for we're gonna have all the links down there for you guys to reach Cathy, email, website, and the link to the laughter yoga. And when you get there, you can say, "I heard that talk. I'm here." And so do that. Get in touch and learn about sprouting, about how to get worms in your house, and do the laughter yoga for sure, for sure. Last question. In one sentence, what is a parting message that you want people to take with them that they can just remember and use and benefit from? Deep
Hmm.
breath and thought.
I want people to live their life by their own guidance, not what society wants them to do or their parents want them to do. Go deep in and find out what is it that you really want and do that. Don't wait. Someday never comes. Do it now. If not now, when? If not you, who?
Do it now. That's kind of like, Nike's just do it. You gotta take that chance. You gotta take the opportunity. You gotta do. You're right. And I did it a little, the only regret I have in life, the only regret I have, and I'm hoping that regret goes away, because with every progressive day, the regret is becoming smaller. When I left my old life in 2016, from 2016 to 2018, there was a lot of regret. Like, oh my God, Ali, what are you doing? You're crazy, And when I had to, not had, when I chose to give away all my money because I was addicted, and I wanted to free myself from addiction,
Hmm.
of being addicted to money, I actually had to go to court and let the court know that I'm making this decision. Like, I'm fully there. My mind's functional, right? Because I was taken to court for basically, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know. He doesn't
Wow.
want to do this, right? So I had to explain that, no, I do very well know. But then after that, there was regret of, am I going to be successful? Can I do this? Can I be successful in my mission? Regret, 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 regret. And then the regret started waning as Compassiviste started happening, and I'm starting to see the light, right? And it's becoming a lot less. But my regret is, like you said, just do it. My regret is, why did I not get into my zone and what the universe had placed me here with that momentum? Like, I was given a momentum to bring to this planet and to civilization, in a sense. Like, you are given a moment, everybody's given their distinct momentum, like a fingerprint. I came with that momentum. I got lost all over the place, everywhere, until 2016. And maybe these lost moments were all preparatory, in a sense, for the future 30 years, 40 years. But the regret is becoming less and less now. So I tell people
Hmm.
all the time, what you say, just do what you believe in, do what you want. And then slowly, at first it may be difficult, at first it may be awful, but then it will get there. You will get there.
Here to
You'll
relieve
find.
the
Yeah.
here you go to relieve the regret. Every path is the right path.
Mm-hmm.
So
Eventually
there's
you
no
realize it is. Yeah.
right. Every path is the
Yeah.
right one. So all the things, all the steps you took, even if it felt like a misstep at the
Mm-hmm.
time, or what if I took that step? That
Mm-hmm.
was the right one at that moment.
Yes.
That's such a great that's a great stress reliever. I feel when I heard that even not that long ago, I was like, every path is the right path. How
Mhm.
freeing.
Yes, very liberating. To understand you can't look at life in rights and wrongs, but you can just look at it at degrees of rightness. That's the way I feel about it. And so you always want to just elevate to be to complete your mission, as opposed to kind of letting go. But don't ever look at things as wrong, in a sense. Cathy, thank you very, very, very much for
Hmm.
speaking on Compassiviste Dialogues. This was so much fun. A lot of thoughtful things you said, a lot of laughter, a lot of good stories. And thank you for the effort of sharing your education with the world, whether it's academic, all the education you bring from SOB, because I still want to say that word. It'll probably be one of the last times I can say it. I mean, where else am I going to use this? And your travels and your experiences and all the work you've done. So thank you for all of that. I mean, this is what Compassiviste is about: people who aren't necessarily capitalizing on their innovation and pioneering initiatives like you are, but who turn around and share what they know and the wisdom that they've collected and what the universe has handed to them with the world to make the world a better place. That's the way I see things, and I see that in you all the way. So even though you've probably never heard of the word compassivist before meeting me, you live like one. So it's not
Hmm.
something that you need to get a badge of honor for. You need to complete a certificate under my school or something for you to get that. It's just a way of being that we all have within us, and some people
Hmm.
activate that and some people don't, and you have. So congratulations, and thank you for sharing how you did that. To our audience, please subscribe to Compassiviste Dialogues channel and share this episode so we can get Cathy's work with Down syndrome and laughter yoga up and moving. Follow us on our social media. All links to Cathy Nesbitt and her multiple initiatives, Worms, Sprouting, and Laughter, and Compassiviste are listed below. We're here to help change the world together. I'm Ali Horiat. Thank you, Cathy.